We are back with another live episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Steph Sanchez. And Stephanie, let me ask you something. Thanksgiving's a time for reflecting, it's a time for food, it's a time for football, but it's also a time to dominate and destroy those bum ass Seattle Seahawks. Steph, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh man, it was great. For one, I'm glad that the game was the nighttime game because then I was able to enjoy my, morning. I was able to actually eat without like stressing a little too much. It was awesome, and to see the guys at the end of the game eating that turkey in that small ass table, even though it was a small table. It was awesome. I definitely stayed up late to watch that. I'm sure you did too, Jay. And I also liked, just a little sidebar that they brought out more than two players because in the past it's always just been two guys. It wouldn't have surprised me if the 49ers, being how they are, asked, "Hey, can we bring in some more guys to this shoot?" And, they probably did that. And then Kittle bringing the turkey back to the locker room. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, and look, that is a bookend right there of this rivalry. Okay. The Seahawks, for a large majority of this time, ran the rivalry. The 49ers couldn't find a way to get wins. But now the tables have turned, literally. You know, Thanksgiving tables have turned. And now you guys are little, bro. You guys can't get a win. You guys are little. You guys can't beat us. It's such a beautiful thing. And it's also my favorite dish that's being served on Thanksgiving because I love apple pie as dessert, but humble pie is my favorite.
Mm,
So Pete Carroll,
he's
Seattle
spitting.
Seahawks fans, the Seattle Seahawks fans who were so loud about this game. I can't wait for Thanksgiving. I can't wait. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Oh, baby. So before we get into the real game of this week, we can go back a little bit on Thursday. But
Yeah, let's do it.
Steph, my analysis of this game kind of goes out the window because I pride myself on trying to be objective and understanding the ins and outs of why things are happening. I found myself in this game not caring about any of that at all, right? I was just like I was seeing like red because of the Seahawks and Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
It was just nice to just be a fan and let go and just enjoy and bask in the beatdown in Seattle. It's just like even when there was that little moment after the pick six where you're like, ah shit, here we go, that kind of just got stomped out pretty quickly. So yes, this isn't a rivalry anymore until you win a game. Seattle, it's not a rivalry anymore.
I used to pray for times like this.
Oh,
I swear, like it's crazy to think, but yeah, I definitely think the tables have turned for both of these franchises. Geno Smith is not that guy, pal, and I thought it was hilarious watching Pete Carroll chewing his gum on the sideline. We had him throwing out those things like he was going through it. He was going through it. I was surprised I didn't see DK roid raging because Mooney Ward had him strapped the hell down all freaking game. So credit to Mooney Ward, credit to Ambry Thomas. Who would have thought that we would be talking about Ambry Thomas in such a positive light at this point in the season? Yeah, there we go. Pete
I
Carroll.
love the face. It's so good. I love it. I love it. I just but you know what though? I will say this. Even when they're distressed and Seattle's losing, he's still like not losing his mind. Like I could go for a little bit more of hysterics from Pete Carroll, but just like Pete Carroll always does, no matter what, well, we're gonna be fine. I think there's a few mistakes. Like it's just, oh my god, do you ever really just get mad at anything ever? I just it pisses me off that he never gets pissed off.
But do you think that's like a facade though? Like, do you
Of
think he
course it
just does
is.
that?
It's a,
Yeah, like to
it's a
just hype
defense
up his.
mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism. It's everybody love everybody. It's everything's great. All my players are good, even if they stink. It's just annoying. I hate it so much. I would kill to watch him slam a tablet down. I would kill to watch him kick over a cooler or something. Like, just be a little mad,
Well, him
dude. Like you were.
him him throwing his gum is probably the closest we're gonna get.
Oh man,
That was a great
pray
shot there.
pray for the person that it almost hit. But Look, in terms of the rivalry, like that's done. That's out the window now at this point. And I don't want to hear anything more about the Seattle Seahawks. They have a ways to go. Like you're not in this tier. You're not on that level. You guys are not that guy at all. So I don't want to hear it anymore. But I did want to talk about what you actually had analysis. Charvarius Ward went into this game as like the most targeted guy, and I think a lot of people were looking at him and saying, "Hey, either we're going to throw the ball up at him in a jump ball situation and try to win, or we're going to try to draw a penalty." None of that happened in this game, and Charvarius Ward turned in his best game as a 49er.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if he continues to play in that fashion, this defense goes to a whole nother level. Now, Embry Thomas, this is the biggest surprise. I believe he was the highest graded coverage member by PFF. This is the biggest surprise because at the trade deadline, everyone wants a corner. We don't know what goes into that, right? It takes two to tango. You don't know if the 49ers offered something. Maybe they didn't, get something back. You saw Jalen Johnson have almost like 3 interceptions yesterday. He was incredible for Chicago. But Steph, what if the 49ers trade deadline move was in the building the entire time? What if Ambry Thomas was your trade deadline chip that you now have gotten something out of, and it just makes this secondary so much more scary. This defense is playing at the level that we thought it would all season.
And quick credit to Lenore as well, who has been a big improvement from Isaiah Oliver in the nickel spot too. And I think part of the reason that having Mooney Ward follow DK around was so successful is the fact because you have Ambry Thomas who was also holding his spot down, right? He allowed just 2 catches, 16 yards allowed in his coverage, 2 pass breakups, interception. That was a nice interception. He got passer rating of 20.8 when throwing in his coverage is what Geno Smith has. So he's been nails. Like not just this game. I think this game was just like an accumulation of like the previous other two. But he's been nails since the bye week, since he's been starting on the outside. So you love to see it. It really feels like if Ambry Thomas could continue to turn in these types of performances along with Mooney Ward, they've unlocked like another level that they could take this defense in.
Yeah, and again, front end, back end, completely married. Nice to see you, Javon Hargrave, defensive line. Fred Warner, again, incredible. Defense played out of its mind. It never really felt like Seattle was moving the ball at all. I think their first few
Yeah.
points were just off of that kick return. It just never felt
Yeah.
like this game. This game had its little tense moment after the pick six, and you just kind of felt like, oh, okay, now what? How do you respond? But that was it. This game was never in doubt. The Seattle Seahawks are just not on the San Francisco 49ers level, and I don't want to hear about them anymore. I don't want to hear about them anymore. I don't want to hear about you need to be worried about them. The 49ers right now are dominating the NFC West, and they are
Mhm.
just beating the brakes off of all of them. So I don't want to hear it anymore about Seattle, and I don't want to hear it anymore about a rivalry. You have to in a rivalry, win a game. Now we're going on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 4 straight, right? Um,
Mhm.
and the worst part is not to look ahead, but in 2 weeks, the 49ers get to do it again. And you can game plan all you want, Seattle, and you can try to figure some things out. There's nothing to do with a talent gap. When the talent gap is this far, when this team is just better than you, game plan your little hearts away because it's just going to happen again. There's nothing you can do. So it's really nice to be on the other side of this. So if you notice,
I know.
I'm taking a longer victory lap on this because the game did happen on Thursday. Today's Tuesday, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it. But
Yeah.
it really feels good to be on this side of it now because I was so tired of being on the other side of it, and Seattle fans weren't so nice about it. So if you think I'm going to be nice about it, be the bigger person, just because I'm tall doesn't mean I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to be the much smaller person. I'm going to be the way smaller person this time when it comes to this. So Seattle, hope your Thanksgiving was fun because I had a blast. I had fun. But
I think
good.
I think it's nice too because we were looking at this 3 game stretch, right? Seattle, Eagles, Seattle, and thinking, wow, that's the gauntlet. But
Yeah.
suddenly seeing how the 49ers performed against Seattle, it's a nice little test, I think, as far as just perseverance more than anything because you're playing in Seattle, you never really know what can happen. You can't let your guard down kind of thing. So in that sense it was a bit of a test, but as far as the talent, you mentioned the talent gap, that is definitely there. So suddenly like this stretch does not look scary. Like the only thing that the 49ers are focused on now is beating the Eagles, and it's really just a Seahawks sandwich there, and we're now in the meat of the quote unquote gauntlet, which is
Hey,
not
yo.
so scary. But
Hey, yo. All right.
was that damn? Was that pause worthy? I'm
Hey,
sorry.
yo. All right.
What?
uh, no, well, let's talk about
I'm
the
like
offense a
saying it
little bit
back in
too.
my head, like
It just as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Hey, yo, all right." But the thing is the offense was really good in this game as well too, right? Like obviously the
absolutely.
numbers. Brock Purdy has 200 something passing yards. But Christian McCaffrey back to running the football. I really enjoyed what I saw from Elijah Mitchell as well too. I think that's something that we're kind of losing sight of. Every week he seems to be a little bit better. And that's really great. You know, Brandon Ayuk has 2 catches, but one of them is an amazing catch on a throw from Purdy, in which Kyle Shanahan looks so fired up because he explained after the game that that was set up for a 12-yard, check down, but he makes the throw with touch and he scores. And that's Kyle looking like, oh my God, like all these things that are there, he's seeing it and he's doing it. Like Kyle is just having a ball right now calling plays. That's a beautiful thing. Thought you see a little bit more from George Kittle, especially in a primetime game on Thursday. But Debo Samuel the engine of this offense, really, even though Christian McCaffrey's there? Like there's something about like when Debo plays that this offense just feels like it's different, even if he's not necessarily touching the ball a lot, Steph. It just feels like there's a little bit more juice when Debo's in the lineup.
That's because he's the tone setter, right? And I think it was so clear to me in the 3 games that he was out that this offense does miss him if he's not out there, even with all the other weapons that they have. Like he brings something to this offense, as you said, even when he's not getting the ball. And I think it's a mentality thing. It just when you have a guy like that who plays the way that he does, when he does have the ball in his hands, you feel a lot better when he's out there. And so yeah, it was nice to see him get involved again. Uh, I would like to see that carry into this game against the Eagles too. I'm sure we'll talk about actually, let's just get into it now. Like the 49ers have an advantage in
Hmm.
terms of the rest, right? Like
Hmm.
they have 3
Finally,
days extra rest going into this one. The
mini
Eagles
buy.
played mini bye. The Eagles had a tough 2 game stretch going into this game, including that OT game against the Bills. Their defense played 92 snaps.
Good.
So I think you could take advantage of that as much as you can going into
Hmm.
it as far as the play calling goes, right? Let's dial up some more runs for Debo Samuel, some yards after the catch. I've actually thought it's been interesting that the 49ers, like for a few weeks now, haven't really relied on yards after the catch to move the football.
Hmm.
You think about how much they relied on that, in seasons past. And you talk about Brock Purdy and how he's able to push the ball downfield. You no longer really need that element, but sometimes I feel like it's nice to have it in your back pocket. Like 'cause
Hmm.
they can always go back to it if they want to. They could still do it. They have the guys to do it. So again, like this could be one of those games where maybe you bring that element back a little bit just
Yeah.
to move the ball, just to put more mileage on these Eagles defensive players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't look at the as many places they've had and not think that way, right? But for me, when you look at how the 49ers have 4 teams that they faced off of a bye this year, the least amount of rest, right? Like this mini bye is perfect right here in front of this game as well too, so they can get ready. I don't have any sympathy for the Philadelphia Eagles. Nobody was having sympathy for the 49ers when they had to go out there, on short rest or fly across the country, whatever. At least they get to stay home. They get to stay home and they get to wait for the 49ers. So, yeah, that's definitely an advantage. When you look at the time of possession the last 2 weeks, offenses have been doing a good job possessing the football. I suspect that the 49ers are going to want to get back to that in this game as well, too. I do think there will be those design shots in there that we thought we were going to see in the NFC Championship game. But that brings me to my first rant of this episode. Um, the beef has been reignited. Hassan Reddick said there's a lot of boo-hoos. Debo Samuel says he doesn't regret
Regret.
saying anything when he called James Bradbury trash.
Yeah.
This is my message to the San Francisco 49ers. Put up or shut up. I don't want to hear about what you're going to do. I don't want to hear about what you could have done. Go do it on Sunday. You're not going to get a chance to win the NFC Championship game on Sunday. And you're not going to get a chance to step into the number 1 seed on Sunday. But what you are going to do is be able to shut up all of this talk that's been happening since the end of the NFC Championship game and has bled its way all the way into November 28th of this same year. You hear Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who doesn't even play for this team, who has problems with this team, right? Javon Hargrave's now on the other side. All the 49ers did during Super Bowl week when I was down there to talk about what they would have done. All I heard was what the Eagles said about, well, they're sore losers. Well, you know what? No more talking. Get it done. And if you don't get it done, I don't want to hear any excuses at all after this one. If you do not beat the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't want to hear an excuse about we could have did this. We could no, 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 no. Sunday's your game. Get it done. Put up or shut up. I don't want to hear it anymore. No more talk. If the 49ers win, you don't get the NFC title game, but you let everybody know that if we need to come back here, we can do this again. So this is more than just a win in the standings for the 49ers. It's more, let's send a message that if we
Yeah.
do have to come back here, we're built to come in here and beat you. And also, we probably would have done this in the NFC Championship game. For me, just go ahead and handle business. No more talking. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any 49er from now until Sunday talk about that NFC Championship game. Talk about what you're going to do on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a statement game, right? And they gotta stand on business on
Oh,
Sunday.
I love that you threw that
They
in there.
gotta stand on business.
Standing
And
on
I
business.
I think I I think when you hear Ayuk and Debo talk about the game, I think they talked to the media yesterday. You get the sense, right, that they're not trying to do any talking because they know, like, okay, we already did our talking after the NFC Championship game, and now we're gonna let the pads do the talking, right? So it's really how it has to be for both teams. And one thing that I think is not being talked about enough because there's so many storylines going into this game, right? I mean, is Brock Purdy. Like, what is the mindset that Brock Purdy is going to have going into this game? And if I know anything about Brock Purdy, which I don't know much, but I know how he acts on the field and all that, the swagger he has to him. I think he's going to go into this game with extra motivation, right? To prove that he could have won that game in the
Hmm.
NFC Championship. And so I think we're going to see a great performance. I think part of the improvements that we've seen in Brock Purdy's game has some to do with that play. Because I think he blames himself for Hassan Reddick getting to him because he thought just a second longer about letting that ball rip to Ayuk, right?
Hmm.
And so what have we seen this year from Brock Purdy? We've seen anticipation throws. We've seen him being even more decisive than he was last year, right? So I think we're going to see all of that in this game, maybe a little bit extra. I think Brock Purdy is going to come to play, and I think all of these playmakers as well, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, even like all these guys, because they got something to prove.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm fine with you being upset about what happened in the NFC title game. I'm just tired of the talk about a game that is over now. Even though this win isn't going to give you an NFC championship ring and send you to the Super Bowl, you still just have to let people know that if we need to come back here, we can, and this is what we would have done. So, rant number two, and then we'll get back to actual football. But I am tired of hearing about the goddamn Rocky statue. And I want to explain something to everybody real quick. In 2021, I went to Philadelphia to watch the 49ers play the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Jimmy Garoppolo after a win against the Detroit Lions, and 49er fans plastered Rocky with 49er stuff. Do we remember how that game ended? The 49ers won. And then last year, people put stuff on Rocky, and the 49ers lost. And now, it's, oh my God, please don't touch the Rocky statue. Wait, guys, are we 12 or are we adults? Are games played on football fields or with superstitions? Please, I beg you to stop worrying about something as silly as a fictional boxer. I mean, it's dumb enough that Philadelphia cares about Rocky as if he's real. They don't even like Sylvester Stallone. They like Rocky. And yet, you cannot deface a fictional character because it somehow has something to do with NFL football. Guys, wake up call. Games are played on football fields. They are not played by fictional boxers and their statues. Do whatever you want, fan however you want, but just know that decision has nothing to do with the outcome that is going to happen on the field. It's not like the Eagles are like, they deface Rocky. All right, we're turning up to 12 now. Like that, let's get it. It does not matter. I'm just the amount of people nervous about a fictional boxer statue is insane, man. Guys, I'm more worried about what are the Eagles going to do on offense, on defense, rather than did you put something on when you put something on Rocky. Like, they don't even care about Sylvester Stallone. Rocky's not real, guys. Come on. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest.
Personally, I rock with fictional Kyle Shanahan than fictional Rocky,
Oh yeah.
but
Fake Kyle Shanahan's my goat.
yeah.
I met him at the NFC Championship game in LA, man, and he's out there with the play sheet and everything.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, people even in the comments are like, "Man, that's bad karma. That's are you
But was
12
it
for?"
bad karma when they did it in 2021 and won? I mean, I I just don't get it. How does it is which way does it work? When you did it in 2021, it worked and everybody didn't say anything. When it happened in 2022, that's the reason that Brock Purdy's elbow got torn to shreds. Like, which is it, guys? It's just there's no rationality towards this. There's no like the idea of bad karma is only if you believe in stuff like that. None of that has to do with what's going to happen on Sunday in the game. Come on.
Like it's one thing if you're superstitious. Like I get it. Like, sometimes if the 49ers have won and a shirt that you keep wearing on Sunday, maybe you want to wear it the next time around. I get it. But like we're talking about a statue of a fictional character. Like it's not an actual person. Like, come on
He didn't
now.
even win in the first Rocky. He lost.
Yeah, so no, I'm not worried about it. I understand that people are superstitious and all that, but it's like Jay said, it's only becomes real if you believe in it. But
Yeah.
anyway, I have a rant of
Rocky
my own,
defeated
Jay.
communism.
Shout out Brett for that
Shout out
comment
Brett
and just
Rubbeck.
being awesome in general.
Yep.
Um I have a rant of my own, and because I come on here and I complain every once in a while. Look, I did want to point out that the 49ers did improve in a number of areas in week 12. And so now I'm looking for them to continue, that momentum and keep it rolling in week 13 against the Eagles. So third down efficiency improved a little bit. It went from in week 12, they converted 45% of their third downs compared to 36 in the previous 2 weeks. They also turned 75% of their red zone trips to touchdowns compared to 37 in weeks 11 and 10. So that's great, right? You want to see that to continue. Ideally, you'd want to see the third down conversions increase even more. But as far as penalties go, they cleaned that up. They had 7 penalties in week 10, 7 in week 11, just 3 against Seattle. 4 missed tackles against Tampa Bay. They had 5 against Seattle. So that's something, they're keeping relatively low. Here's one thing I want to see improve, though, as well. The 49ers defense has been getting turnovers for this team, but they're not doing a great job. The offense isn't doing a great job of capitalizing on those turnovers. At least it's not as much as you would like. They didn't get any points off of Ambry Thomas, his interception. They got just 3 points off of DJ Dallas's muff punt. So I want to see more because those are big opportunities. And when you're playing a team as good as the Eagles and who are able to come back from behind, you just can't leave anything to chance. You can't leave any room for them to be able to come back in a game or anything like that. So I just think I want to see more from the offense. You know how like Kyle has, first 24, 25 plays of
Plays.
the game. Like, should he have scripted plays for turnovers as well? Like, I'm starting to consider that. I
Quick
know
change
it's
of possession. Hey, Kyle,
yeah, like
that's something to add to the bag. You're absolutely right. And I think if anybody watched that game last night between Chicago and Minnesota, boy, riveting stuff. Minnesota turned the ball over 4 times, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The Bears scored 0 points off of that, right? And then they had to win the game at the end. So, yeah, against Seattle, you can afford to make those mistakes because you can stop them defensively, but you're not going to be able to get away with that if you do get these turnovers, right? And right now, Jalen Hurts, who's the MVP candidate, he seems to be turning the ball over a lot. And
mhm.
in a road game that you need to have, you're gonna have to capitalize off that. Not 3 points, 7. You're gonna have to put 7 up. So for me, it's more about capitalizing on those things, like you said. And Eric Pruitt said, "Didn't y'all lose to Minnesota? Didn't y'all lose to Zach Wilson?" Just asking. Just asking. If we're doing that. So but with the 49ers offense, right, it's going to be about ball control and it's going to be about the thing that they were trying to do in the NFC Championship game that Kansas City was absolutely able to exploit, which is motion in the secondary. Motion in the secondary. Like You're moving guys around until the point where there's confusion. Nobody knows. That's why they were able to get those 2 wide open touchdowns. That's really what was going to open up the throw to Brandon Ayuk before he got injured. All that stuff is going to be there. So motion is going to be a big part of this game in terms of confusing the secondary, making Bradbury cover by himself, getting advantageous situations, and letting that thing rip. So it is going to be a lot about running the football, which Philly hasn't been exactly great stopping. But it is about going back to that NFC title game plan that Kansas City ended up executing in the Super Bowl in terms of moving guys around and getting guys confused and getting open throws, easy throws for touchdowns.
Yeah, and Hurts has been susceptible to turnovers, right? He has 15 touchdowns, but 10 interceptions and 10 fumbles. So that tells me the opportunities are going to be there for the 49ers defense. But again, the 49ers offense, they do have to capitalize on it. Another little stat is Eagles have 5 games this season with multiple turnovers. So yeah, the opportunity is going to be there, but you got to finish the job. Um, to go along with your conversation on, the motion and just what I think like the 49ers offense are going to want to do in this game. I mean, I already talked about the advantage that they have with the extra rest, but, I think one of the things that a lot of 49er fans are talking about is the Eagles passing defense, because
Mhm.
a lot of people have kind of seen that as a weakness for this defense. They're giving up an average of 256 passing yards per game. That is 29th in the league. I don't watch a ton of Eagles games, so I don't, maybe Eric in the comments can chime in on this one.
I mean, I'm sure
or
he's going to say that they do everything perfectly.
or Jay, if like you watch a lot of their games, I kind of wonder, like sometimes some of those stats could be skewed because teams have to pass against you, right? Like certain,
Yeah.
um and so I'm
They
wondering if
actually
it's kind of some of that, because like
they
the
actually
Eagles
haven't
have a
been
good rushing defense.
yeah, they haven't been really blowing people out though. Like they've been in tight
That's
games
true.
like pretty much all season at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 49ers, teams are passing on them 67% of the time. Uh, Teams are passing against the Eagles 68% of their plays. So, uh, kind of similar in the way that teams are playing against both of these defenses. But I think Kyle is going to be able to cook some stuff up, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Brandon Ayuk being what he's been able to do, this year, the connection that he has with Purdy, I already talked about Debo Samuel. Kittle was quiet, the past week, but he could be someone that, could potentially expose some of those open spots in their defense as well. The biggest thing, though, with me is that I worry about with the Eagles is that they've shown hell of an ability to come from behind, right?
Yeah.
They lead the league in second half points. The
Yep.
49ers are fifth, by the way, for what it's worth. Um, but I saw a couple stats that like kind of blew my mind, but at the same time, not really, because I've seen it with my own eyes. Jalen Hurts' quarterback rating when winning is 65.9. When losing, 121.9. His
Yeah.
EPA per play when leading is middle of the pack. But when trailing or tied, it's a little over zero point 0.4. And I saw it on a chart. So, like, the numbers don't really illustrate it like I'm saying it. But in the
Mhm.
chart, Hertz was far and away, like, had a higher EPA per play than any other quarterback when trailing or tied. So, that's the thing I'm worried about with the Eagles offense more than anything. And I think that's their greatest strength, just their
Mhm.
ability to be able to persevere in a game. You got to
Yep.
play all 4 quarters with them, and you can't get
Yep.
comfortable.
Yeah, you know what? I think that is bang on because the one thing that I admire about the Eagles, and regardless of the circumstances of how they win, they find a way to win. And the 49ers still haven't done that yet, right? They haven't done that yet. But Philly is just finding ways to win, and you have to give them credit. Now, if you're going to blame the refs, you're going to blame drop passes, fine, fine, and fine. But at the end of the day, they get the wins, and that's why they're 9-1, right? Like that's something that you cannot overlook. But I wanted to go over some of their defensive metrics and their numbers. So total yards per game, they are 19th in the league with 341 per game allowed, 5.22 per play, 16th in the league. They're third in rushing yards per game. The 49ers are actually second, but they are allowing 4.08, which is 12th on per play rushing. 29th in passing yards allowed, 255.7. They are 31st in interception rate, 1.32%. They are not turning the football over in that fashion. They're actually 21st in sacks per pass attempt, which is shocking, 7.02%, especially with the way that they started out early on the gates. They allow the 27th most first downs per game, 21.1. They allow 22.4 points per game. And they are actually in the red zone 28th, allowing a touchdown on 64 or allowing a score on 64.86% of those red zone trips. So yeah, look, those numbers are fine, right? Like when you look at it that way, but somehow they still find ways to win the game. And I think
Mhm.
that is what we should be talking about. I think that's why a lot of people have Jalen Hurts at the top of the MVP candidate, list. I don't necessarily, just because I think if there was ever a year to give it to a position player, it's probably this year. Just because there hasn't been one quarterback who's just been dominant the entire time, right? Like it's for weeks you think it's Mahomes, for weeks you think it's Allen, for weeks it's Lamar, for weeks it might be Hurts, but it's not all across. For weeks it might be Dak, right? Like I think Dak's playing really good football too, and nobody ever wants to say anything about that because it's against some bad teams. But he is playing good football. I just don't know. Like me watching as much of the Eagles as I have, I think it's based on the fact that they just find ways to win games more than it is like Hurts being dominant. But yeah, I want to say this, but I don't want to have it come off the wrong way. But it probably will anyway, so I'm just gonna say it. While this team is 9-1, this team is not as dominant as they were last year. Like I don't see the same team that I saw last season. And early on in the year, I was just chalking it up to new play caller. They'll figure it out, right? Like, but we've got a 10-week sample size of them kind of just letting teams hang around that they were normally dominating and having games be a lot closer than they were. That's not to say that, oh, this is what the 49ers should be, like hanging their hat on, whatever it is, but there's a lot of these games for the taking. Now, MVS catches a pass or Justin Watson can catch a pass. We're talking about something completely different. Buffalo has Gabe Davis turn in the right direction when he's running wide open for a touchdown. That game goes a little bit different, right? You can't count almost losses as like a loss, but this team is not the same as last year because last year they were straight up just dominating people, and it feels like almost every game they're in the thick of it all the way to the end.
That's fair, but at the end of the day, like they're winning. Like if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be like, I don't care how they win as long as they're winning, kind of thing. So, um, that's all that matters in the NFL. If you're getting wins, you're getting wins, right? It's not like the same as last season when we were watching like the Vikings like win against all those teams. We're like, they're frauds. We know they're frauds. And I don't think that's what you're saying, Jay. I'm just saying that it's like I still fear the Eagles just for that one fact that they seem very resilient. But I think there's a lot of things I think the 49ers do have the advantage in. It was crazy, right? Like I think the 49ers defense is better than the Eagles defense right now. Like if you're just looking at the past 3 weeks, and I know like it's a small sample size, right? But if you're just looking at the past 3 weeks for both of these teams, like I would say the 49ers defense have the advantage over the Eagles defense. They're still at the top in points allowed category. In the last 3 games, they're averaging 10 points allowed to their opponents. Eagles are allowing 24.7 in their last 3 games. That's same as the Seahawks defense, actually, who we just played and curb stomped, right? So and you mentioned like the sacks, and surprisingly, like their defensive line is not getting as many sacks as you would think because they got some dogs there. I think a lot
Early
of
in the year
them,
they were.
yeah, I think a lot of them like are built for like run defense mostly.
Yes.
Like,
Jalen
like
Carter's a stud. I can't
oh
believe they
yeah,
just let them fall to him.
I'm still pissed about it, but yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy. He's a freak athlete. And yeah, so the 49ers sack rate since week 10 is number 3 in the league at 15 sacks in that span. Compared to the Eagles, they rank 24th in that span. It's a small sample size. Okay,
Mhm.
fine. If you look at the full season, 49ers sack rate is 14th, Eagles 21st. So, and that's crazy because you think about all those games where the 49ers defensive line weren't even getting that many sacks, and yet they have a higher sack rate than the Eagles defensive line. In this game, like I don't think the defensive line is really going to be going for sacks in this one, I think you're looking for containment because Jalen Hurts he's dangerous with his legs. He can get moving, he's quick.
Yeah.
So I don't think the sacks are going to be there for the 49ers, but I think that will be by design. I think you're just looking to keep him in the pocket as much as possible and,
Hmm.
force him to throw it out of bounds or whatever, what have you. The one thing I'd be nervous about with the 49ers offensive line against the Eagles defensive line. That's where I think clearly like the Eagles have the advantage because the 49ers offensive line has been below average like all season. That's putting it nicely, right? Like I didn't want to use a a bad term, but
Right.
that's putting it nicely for them. I think Brock Purdy has done a ton to mask the deficiencies of this offensive line. He creates more time for himself. He's able to escape the pocket every once in a while. I do want to say, like, just a sidebar there. Purdy had a couple of like sideline throws, one to Kittle. There was another one to Debo Samuel. Both,
Hmm.
didn't count. One was because there was a flag, and the other one
Hmm.
I think was out of bounds because Kittle got pushed out of bounds. But those were some nice throws. So that
Yeah.
was nice. I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm concerned about the 49ers offensive line. And tell me what you think about the right guard spot right now, Jay, because Spencer Burford was out, last week. John Feliciano played in his place, but Feliciano went and gave up 4 pressures and I think 4 hurries or something like that. And
Hmm.
in his place. So not quite the performance like you would have thought to like sway you to be like Feliciano's our starting right guard for the rest of the
Hmm.
season. Do you think they rotate those guys like they did Brunskill and Burford last season?
I think they probably do, but I think the lift that Feliciano gave was in the run game and being able to get outside on those outside zones. Especially I think when Eli Mitchell was in there. I think that's how
Yeah.
they really want to run him. So I think that can be cleaned up. I remember Kyle saying that he wanted to get him on the field. If he sees something like where if they start Burford and he becomes to get overwhelmed, then they can always go back to Feliciano. So I think Kyle's not been shy about doing things that like that, with the rotation, after Brunskill. So I could see something like that absolutely 100% happening. I think when it comes down to it, of course, you want to see a second player develop like Burford, but they are very much in the fashion of like, hey, we have a veteran and we have a guy that we know can do the job. He can be adequate. Quarterback play can lift offensive linemen. And vice versa, right? Like if Purdy's getting the ball out on time and maybe he lost that rep, you won't notice it because the ball's gone. So it goes hand in hand a little bit. I think that if Burford is ready to go, I wouldn't be shocked if Feliciano started. But I know if Burford starts and he starts to slide at least even a little bit, and Kyle just gets at least a little antsy in this game, we'll see Feliciano really quick. So either way, I think this has been a long time coming with Burford like kind of being on notice, and Feliciano he's been admirable when he's been asked to step in. So I wouldn't see anything that changes really with that. Let me ask you this: um, I talked about the pass defense because I think that's where the 49ers really need to succeed in this game. And I wanted to highlight two players in the secondary, Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And I think that their numbers are very telling as to where this pass defense is, especially in the secondary. So essentially, Darius Slay has 499 coverage snaps. James Bradbury has 488. So a difference of 11, essentially the same this season, both in 10 games. Uh, they're targeted a nice number of 69, both of them. Um, uh, Darius Slay is allowing actually a 65.2 percentage of his catches. So 45 out of 69, 37 out of 69 for James Bradbury, 53.6. But, but the difference is the touchdowns allowed. James Bradbury has allowed 7 touchdowns and an NFL passer rating of 100.9. Darius Slay has allowed 2 with 84.9. These are the two guys that you really need to go after and find a way to put them in position where they need to cover one on one with some of those routes that seem to be wide open, right? All the time. Like we look around and we're like, why is Debo wide open? Why? Well, this is the way that you can scheme up the offense, but it has to go through these two guys. Like for Debo Samuel to say that he's not backing down from James Bradbury being trash, then all right, you've got to go out there and you've got to do something against him right now. So it looks like these are the guys that you would have to actually attack. And when you look at Darius Slay's number of 511 receiving yards allowed, 218 are on Yak. And the average depth of target for both of them is James Bradbury 12.2 and Darius Slay 10.1. But I think it's quite obvious what you need to do on offense and who you need to attack. And I think that's where you go with it.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. Like Debo has something to prove against both of both of those guys, right? Because Darius Slay, unprompted, by the way, was talking trash a few weeks ago. So Debo is going to have it out for both of those guys. And yeah, I mean, I think as we mentioned earlier in the show, like I think they are kind of susceptible to some big plays here and there in the secondary. And so I think Kyle's going to be able to dial it up. Whoever's going to take, right? Like I don't really care what they do if they decide to go the yak route, if they decide to go like possession receiver, Ayuk downfield, like okay, let's do it. Like I don't care. But I think the 49ers have the playmakers to win any which way. And Eric, our resident Eagle fan in the comments earlier said that Bradbury's is toast. So he's burnt toast out there. So
He
that's
was
coming from
last
an
year.
Eagles fan,
He
right?
was
So
last year too. That kind of happened in the Super Bowl, and it was showing itself. And that's what the 49ers were about to do. So that's why,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
whatever it is that you were going to do in the NFC Championship game, do it. Like, I don't want to hear
I mean,
anymore about what you would have done.
like, I don't think you can do it to a T because, like, it's a different defensive coordinator now. So I think some of those things would be different, but like a lot of those guys are the same players, right? So
Yeah.
you know what their weaknesses are. Kyle looked at them under a microscope, and I'm sure he has certain plays dialed up against certain
hmm
guys. So yeah, and also Christian McCaffrey was on his way, I think, to having a great game against the Eagles
Uh,
too. Like I
don't you
know,
remember that run?
oh
Don't you remember that
man,
touchdown
no
run? Like
man, it
just for
gave me
just
hope.
yeah, just
No,
for a
it gave
small
me
second,
hope.
just for a small second, you were like, oh my god, is he gonna do this? Yeah,
It gave me hope,
that's a
man.
tough pill to
Also,
swallow because he's like running through every Eagle and he scores, and you're just like, oh,
uh,
like it's so close, like oh my god, like hey maybe, and then nah, it just falls apart. So yeah.
also shout out all the Eagles. Thank you for the views. Thanks for the engagement. It
Well,
helps us out a ton. I
I
appreciate
will
it.
say this. I will say this. I I'm the type of person who stand on business. One man army against 50.
Stand-
I want to know something real quick. If this doesn't go your team's way and you're in here talking crazy, are you going to be back? Are you going to be back on our stream saying, "Hey, good game. You got it." Or are you just going to disappear? 100 stand on business. Stand on it. Because if you don't show back up, you're telling me what the Philly fans are. So JD Davis, shout out to you. I hope your team wins, and I hope you show back up when they don't. So just make sure you stand on business. That's it. Because we have this all the time. Cowboys fans come in here and they're talking crazy. I think the Cowboys fans kind of learned their lesson about talking to us, though. But they don't show up after the game. They don't show back up. Rams fans talk crazy. They don't show back up after the game. I'm here for the banter. But if you're going to dish it, be able to take it and come right back. Make sure you take in all the 49ers content once the 49ers get it done. Yeah, by the way, I'm predicting a 49ers victory. I mean, I wouldn't be allowed to probably do this podcast if I don't. But stand on business and come back. Because if you don't show back up, you telling me what the Eagles fans are. You like talking when you're up. You like talking before things happen, but you won't come back and face it. So don't be like a Cowboys fan. Don't be like a Rams fan. Don't be like a Seahawks fan. Stand on business. Stand on business. And JD Davis, I stood right up in front of this camera after the 49ers lost that game.
Yeah, he acting
And
like
I
we
said,
did.
congratulations to the Eagles, and I made no excuses. You must not know me, but one man army against 50. I'm standing on business. Don't play with me. You don't know me, bro.
You guys see you guys in the
I don't
comments
understand.
making
People just be
they're
talking
making the
crazy like they don't
jersey.
know us.
Yeah,
They,
they're making the jersey and the Drew
they
ski
don't.
come out of Jay.
They don't know, but they don't know us. Like, regardless of what happens in this game, we still have a job to do. We still have to get up in front. Like, it's not like we can just say, "All right, post game show canceled," or "I'm not doing nothing all week."
Dude, can you
Like,
imagine like someone
yeah,
cancels their post game if the
yeah,
team
like
loses?
just I'm canceling the post game because a bunch of random internet strangers. Like, get out of here, man! I gotta stand up, gotta stand right up, and I gotta talk about it. Like, so I'm worried about nothing. Like I said, I'm gonna be here. Will you? And that's really what it's gonna come down to. So yeah.
And we'll be live next Tuesday, same time, same place.
Yep. So, look, I think again, all the talk, everything, right? Again, me being in Arizona, every Eagle was asked about the 49ers. Every 49er was asked about the Eagles. And they didn't really speak too much about the Chiefs while they were there, like while I was there during doing media. But all that talk needs to go out the window now. I don't want to hear anymore. Like, no more talking about it. Let the Eagles say whatever it is that they want. I think they've earned enough to, obviously they won the NFC title game. They've earned enough to talk, so they can. That's fine. But if you're the 49ers, just go out there, put up or shut up. That's it. No more talking. I don't want to hear anything more about what happened last year. I don't want to hear anything more about what you're going to do. Just go out there and do it. And right now, the team is as healthy as it gets. Aaron Banks is back as well, too. That's a great sign. Like, that's something that I didn't really see coming. You have all your offensive weapons. There's no excuse now. There's no excuse. So it's time for the talk. We can talk because we're not playing, but it's time for the talk from the team to kind of just stop and just go ahead and just get it done. Then after you get it done, then you can go back to talking.
Yeah, and shout out PNB Jeff. He said, as an Eagles fan, we want Brock
Yeah,
to play all four
and
quarters this Sunday. No excuses from both sides.
and
Yeah,
I want Lane Johnson to play. I want Lane Johnson to be good. I hope he drank his soup. I hope he's good. I do not want to see him miss this game. Absolutely. I feel the same exact way. If Lane Johnson had to take off against Buffalo to be ready for this 49ers game, I love that. I love that. I want Lane Johnson to play.
Dallas Goedert kind of pushing to
I
play
hope
too.
Dallas Goedert comes back too.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that it?
We're like,
Is that it? Is that it?
yeah, man.
Look,
I
I'm
mean,
I'm really happy about this game. This is realistically going to be the most watched game of the year, even though it's not national television. All eyes on Sunday will be on this game. Even people who don't get this game in their area, they will find a way to watch this game. This is the most anticipated game, I think, of the year. Regardless of the Eagles and Kansas City meeting up for the Super Bowl, it's always been this because of the way that game ended. And I'll stand on this as well too. Sure, Brock Purdy not being there is a shame because the 49ers didn't get an opportunity, but America was robbed of an incredible game between the two best teams of Philadelphia and San Francisco when that didn't happen. So I think, again, that's why this game always has had the most intrigue because people want to know what would have happened, right? Like, and again, the 49ers don't win the NFC Championship game by winning this game on Sunday. But what you do let them know is if we got to come back here, we have precedent that we can do this again, and we can do it. So this is the one. This has always been the game, right? Like you look at Dallas, you look at all these other ones, right? This has always been the one, and everybody's been having it really like circled. So, yeah, look,
wait.
for this is it. I cannot wait. This is the game that we've been waiting for all year. Um, that's a perfect place to end it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in early on in Cali time, about 8:48 Pacific time. It's not even noon here on the East Coast, but make sure that you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed to the Gold Standard YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to Steph's channel, Steph 49K, mine, Jason Aponte, on YouTube as well. Shameless plugs. Make sure you go to goldstandardniners.com. A lot of info there, a lot of articles there as well too. And as always, enjoy your week. And this is an exciting week, man. It's two banner teams, and I think for me, the two best teams in the NFL that'll be going at it on Sunday. I don't think you
Mhm.
could ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a statement game, I think, for either team. And so I think both teams are going to bring their best. And that's all you can ask for as a 49, as not just a 49ers fan, as an NFL fan, right?
Yep.
I think a lot of people who aren't 49ers and Eagles fans going to enjoy this one too. So hoping for the best. Let's go.
Yep, absolutely. So for Steph, for Jay, we're out here.
Peace.